right. Cool.
Awesome. Is one good or should we?
One is good unless you're gonna walk around, in which case
I'll
too.
sit because I'll use this. All right, it's after 12. I say we
Yeah, let's
get into
started.
it.
Can you get the Zoom people up just so we know who's on there, who we're talking to? All right, so we got Scott and Nuno online, and then we've got Nas and Asa and Kelly in class. So welcome everybody. Today's session, we're going to be talking about how to create momentum with your buyers and how to keep it. So once you do get that buyer lead, to be clear, we're not talking about how to get the buyers. It's once you kind of have a buyer in your space, how do we get them active and keep them engaged and active? And what are the steps and tools we can use to do that? So I think where we wanted to start really was with the initial conversation you have with your client. So when you do get that buyer referral or that buyer lead or that whatever that is for you, the first step that we should all be looking at executing on.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Thanks. I think first to come back to like why we're doing this, one of the things that we're seeing so much in this market is people have names in their pipeline, but nobody's taking action, right? Like for example, a couple of the agents that we're working with, they're like, I've got the biggest pipeline I've ever had in like years of people that have expressed some interest in either buying or selling, but everybody's just kind of paralyzed in terms of making a decision, which is why we think that today's class is so important to be talking about, particularly on the buy side, because it's one of the best times for buyers to be out there. In the history of the GTA, it's not very often you get to go back 5 years in prices in terms of what values are. Even when I was talking with an agent today that has known Paul and Cease, my parents, since like the 90s, she's like, this downturn isn't the same as the other downturns. The other ones were much shorter, like 08, 09, very short. 17, 18, very short, really, in the grand scheme of things. It was really the 90s where we had this long haul of like adjustments. And this is much more like that.
Yeah.
Where really since 2022, the market has been fluctuating in this way. And even in 2024, when we thought we were about to rebound coming into '05, we saw another decline. So it's important for us to be able to have these conversations and carry it through with buyers. And then before we jump into class today, is there anything that you guys want to make sure you get out of it? Like you guys saw us on the training calendar. What do you want to get out of today? Or was it just knowing like, hey, I should come and see what this is all about?
Yeah, also it's just like I see like a lot of things that I sign up with me, but they are like, no, we're just looking.
Yeah.
And they're actively looking.
But they're actively looking, right? Yeah, yeah.
And they again don't want to talk about it. So it's really talking and get out of it and to talk to them how to like take the next step and what you like go from there. So
Perfect. That's good.
So for everyone online, hold on one sec, because I can't hear.
Yep.
Afsa was just saying that she has buyer leads coming into her systems, but the general response has been, I'm not ready, like I don't want to talk about it. Like they're active, they're looking at listings online, but she's having trouble getting into conversation with them or getting them to the point where they're ready to sit down and talk with her. So strategies on how to move those people forward a little bit more, right?
Despite them actively looking, they're still the same.
yeah, or maybe I'm not ready. I'm just not ready. Look, they're looking, but they're not ready.
I'm same thing, to be honest. Like, yeah, getting lead, and it's mostly like the online leads that just they're obviously something there, but nobody's engaging or like ready to push that forward. So yes.
I think the people is not sure about the economy. Economy looks like not stable. They don't know what will happen in next 6 months or next year, if they can afford the mortgage, if they can afford the interest rate. The people want to buy, they need to buy, but they're concerned about the consequences of the the things that's going around the world, right?
Okay, anyone for everyone online, is there anything particular that you want to get out of today's class and why did you come today? What do you want to hear or learn or talk about? Hey, there's Scott. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good. I really appreciate people mentioning that there does seem to be a lot of action happening in the way of like those online leads. I think as Kelly said there, but that next step, like that getting somebody engaged and like picking them into a conversation and pulling them into a conversation. Once you get people started, it seems it's not too difficult, but that initial step. So I'd love to know a little bit more about how to like kind of just light a fire to get those conversations going.
Yeah. Okay. Love it. So kind of similar concepts. It seems everyone's having a similar pain point, which is great. Nuno, Caesar, Tom, what about you guys? Is there anything outside of what's been said that you want us to cover today or answer for you or give you insight into?
Yeah, I need to sell. So Nuno, they're saying I've gotten a lot of I need to sell first before I buy, and the market is down.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean a lot of that sentiment going around right now, and a legitimate hurdle that people need to be able to get over.
Yeah, Krista just hopped on too, and Natanya. So let's give everyone a moment.
Yeah.
We're just trying to gauge, guys, what brought you to the call today. What is it you would like us to talk about, or questions you'd like us to focus on answering? The main one that's been said right now is getting a lot of activity in the sense of like online leads, but the challenge of nurturing those leads into getting into activity and what that process looks like. And then just navigating the objection of like, I need to sell before I buy, or concerns around the market. So is there anything else that we want to cover for everyone online before we jump into the conversation?
All right, I say let's roll. People,
Yeah.
if you've got more questions or anything you want to get out of it, please just put it in the chat, and you guys in the room, of course, just
Or
let us
just
know.
unmute yourselves and,
Yeah.
and talk. We can hear you. So why don't we start there? I mean, that's probably the easiest place to start, seeing as that's the biggest challenge that everyone has. And I think to get that conversation started, the first thing we need to dig into is understanding the concept of online leads, right? So online leads are a great resource and they're a great tool, but first stat we need to know, on average, it's 18 to 24 months for an online lead to convert. So majority of the online leads you're getting exposed to, they're not going to convert right away. They're not even going to convert in the next 12 months, most likely. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, which is why we play that game, because there will be people that pop up, but it is a volume driven model, right? If you don't have enough inbound leads coming in, you're less likely to you're
We're
less,
sideshow acts
yeah,
sometimes too.
just ignore us. We're less likely to find that one person that's ready to go in that 12-month or 6-month or 8-month window. It's the same concept as cold calling or door knocking. It is volume based, right? So if you're getting like 5-10 leads a month, that's probably not enough volume overall for you to find those needles in the haystack that are going to convert faster. So the conversation then becomes about nurture as opposed to conversion, even though the nurture will lead to conversion, right? So one of the things I find that most people kind of confuse with lead generation in general is that we kind of go out and do these activities and we get mad, or we feel it was a failure if we don't get business that day. We don't have a buyer sign, we don't have a listing sign, the people at the door didn't want to hire us immediately, which is a weird thing if you think about it, because if you reverse it, like, Dylan comes and knocks on my door, I'm like, great, come sell my house. I don't know Dylan, right? I'm probably not going to hire him in that moment. But if Dylan stays consistent and follows up with me and stays engaged and provides me value when I'm ready, will likely hire Dylan because he's been there that whole time and he's been nurturing. And it's the exact same concept for online leads. You're just transferring the same strategy. And part of that initial part of the process is qualification, right? So the process that we teach is a little bit less aggressive when it comes to online leads, and we've been working through this with some of our agents, and Caesar actually can speak to this as well because he's been in the program that we've been kind of running. But realistically, with online leads, you want them to get to know you first, right? That's kind of the strategy and the approach we're taking, because there's a lot of conversation around like the 10 days of pain, 12 days of pain, which was a Ben Kinney platform, which kind of blew up and got really bold. And it's great if you want to be hyper aggressive, where when you get an inbound lead that they hear from you 10 days in a row, and you basically consistently call them, text them, email them until they either tell you to stop or they agree to meet with you. And that is a strategy. And I'm not going to say that doesn't work. It absolutely works. It does work. It's proven.
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable doing it, right? And you
Yeah.
have to execute on it. And that's where people get stuck.
I think the other trick is, to be very blunt about it, is you need a big marketing budget.
Yeah.
Because the whole reason with their 10 days of pain is they're looking for the motivated right now buyer that they want to convert now. It's not about nurture for them. That is very much a like sales process approach.
Yes.
And so you need the volume of leads to be able to narrow down to the people that are actually ready to act now. Whereas if you don't have hundreds or thousands of leads coming in on a regular basis, for you, it is more about nurturing those guys until they're ready, because your percentages of online leads that are ready to transact right now is so low. So if you've only got 100 leads or 200 leads, there may be one or two people in there that are ready to transact a little bit faster, but the odds are still slim. So nurture is your way to go, unless you're investing very heavy in terms of a
So
big lead gen machine.
how many leads like generally we're looking at in a week or a day for us to like have a higher chance of a transaction to happen?
Yeah, so the question is how many leads in a week or a day to have a higher chance
Yeah.
of a transaction happening? I would say it's 100 leads a day.
A day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to get to the point where you're having enough engagement, and again, those stats where I'm pulling that from is from Bold and from training and coaching into like if you go and knock on 100 doors every day, there is a better odds, and the ratio does normally work out that you'll talk to about 23 to 30 people if you knock on 100 doors. So if you apply, and out of those 23 people, you should book one appointment,
Mhm.
right? If you apply the same strategy to online, the same numbers and the same process, then in theory, 100 a day, so you've got to buy 100 leads a day, so that's where the budget comes into play,
Mhm.
should generate you enough engagement from those leads that one person will hop on a phone call with you
Mhm.
or will commit to you. So you have to consider that that's a big marketing budget.
Yeah.
Most of us don't have that budget, or we don't want to put that much budget into online leads. And there's no guarantee
Because
out
there is
there,
no
like that's the
guarantee, yeah.
reality of it. Like
Yeah.
it could be 100 tomorrow, and then it could be 300
Yeah.
the next day, and then it might be 50, and then it might be 1,000, right? Like statistically with online leads, the average when they look at it, the average is about per 100 contacts, you should get one appointment that you can nurture or like get to an actual conversation actively. It's the same stat as door knocking, whereas cold calls, it's 1,000 to 1 right now. You could actually make 1,000 dials to talk to enough people to book one appointment. And then your database is about 15 to 1. So if you're nurturing your database, per 15 contacts, you should be getting one referral or one conversation or appointment. So it's important to understand the statistics to work smarter as well and know where the business comes from. Social media, online leads, door knocking now are a better space. Open houses, I would argue, is even stronger right now than those spaces. And then database is number one, right? So we want to kind of strategically show up in our business where the conversion is going to make the most sense. For those of us that are building and don't have a big database yet, we have to do things like online leads and that to get those names in. And that's when it becomes a nurture game, right?
Yeah.
And so we're going to focus more on the nurture today.
Yeah.
But I just wanted you to understand the bigger picture of it all, if that makes sense.
And I would say for those online leads, before we pivot to like really starting at the consultation, because it's now about like, I've got somebody that's met with me that's raised their hand, and now how do I convert them to like an actual transaction as opposed to convert to a client? But absolutely, because we're talking so much about online leads, what I will say is like your process there when a lead comes in, first call is just a discovery call. You want to find out more about what they're actually looking for, maybe a little bit about timeline, what they're excited about. And from that, then you're trying to book like a strategy call. Where you either, maybe it's meeting in person, maybe it's doing a consultation on Zoom, but at that point, you're really trying to figure out like, hey, what are you really looking for? This is how I can help you. And we're going to figure out a plan and next steps and all that. But it's that kind of two-step before you then get to, whatever the next real, maybe in-person meeting might be.
And what we have found has been pretty effective too is before you actually make the initial phone call, send an email or text message just introducing yourself. Polite, like who you are. Hey, thanks for signing up, and use your website name of whatever landing page you're using or whatever URL you're using, because they're going to know that over you right now. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jen. I work on the Silbernagel team. This is the service we provide. If there's anything you need, let me know. Here's my cell phone. Enjoy the website, and just leave it as more passive. Then when you do the call, they know who you are when you call, as opposed to calling first or continually calling and they're like, who's this person that's spamming me that I don't know?
Think about how you receive numbers that you don't know these days. You're not too inclined to pick them up, right?
Yeah, I've ignored like 5 calls today already. So like, yeah, exactly. That's the thing, right? If they leave me a voicemail, I'll check it. But I'm not answering the phone because I don't know who's calling me and I'm not ready to have whatever conversation they want to have with me. But if I get the email, I'm like, oh, Afsa just sent me an email. I recognize the website name. Then I get a nice message, text message from her or some sort of engagement. Then she calls me. I am more likely to be more open to that conversation at that point than I would be on day one, right? So it's a little bit of kind of gentle nurture to create a better opportunity for the initial reach out, which should get us to better engagement. It's not going to work with everybody. Again, we're going back to volume. However, that's the process for every lead. And then when you get them on the phone, then it is qualifying them a little bit more. What are you looking for? How can I help you? Coming from contribution, right? Then the strategy becomes, if they don't want to book the meeting with you, then the strategy becomes logging in and checking the platform. Okay, I have 2 people that I can see are active. Let me look at which listings they've been looking at. Oh, hey, this one is a good fit for them and they've looked at it 5 times. Let me send them a quick message and go, hey, Asa, I saw this listing. I know when we spoke, you mentioned you're looking for 3 beds in this neighborhood. This seems like a good fit. Would you like to go see it? Right? So now I'm having that conversation of let's go and like actually engage together, right? Obviously, if you're going to go show them the property, you should send them the RICO guide. So Darren's not here. We don't have to be too compliant today. But basically, you have to send them a RICO guide and they need to understand that what that is. Now, if they're uncomfortable with signing a BRA, you can do it for one specific property as well. You don't have to do a large BRA. You can do it that way as well. But the reality is that's how you're going to move those leads along. And then it's staying in contact, making sure you're tracking what they're looking at, how often they're looking, how engaged they are. When they are actively engaged, are you reaching out to them in that time slot? So you have to be paying attention. You can't just log in arbitrarily and then be like, oh, well, they were looking a week ago at 5 listings. They should have heard from you a week ago if that was the case, right? So you have to use the tools, which means you have to log into the tools every day, same as we do command with our database. And we have to focus on those reach outs and those touches. You can automate some of it depending on what system you're using too. But with that in mind, let's pivot now to the consultation. So you've talked to them, you've nurtured them, you followed up, they've agreed to meet with you, or they've agreed to have a phone consult or a Zoom consult. It doesn't matter how you do it. Meet them where they are. If they want to meet you on Zoom, great. If they want to meet in person, great.
Yep.
And then you're going to lean into that conversation at the consult.
And I think as we go through today, we'll talk about different ways to create that momentum if you're hitting certain roadblocks. Like if they're not quite engaging enough here, or they're not willing to meet there, and we talk about meeting with them where they are, there's different ways we can pivot how this consultation looks. But essentially what Jen's going to talk about now is like, you've got somebody that wants to work with you. Now, what's the important things that we need to talk about at this consultation specifically that get them excited and start moving them forward? And what do we need to learn from that consultation so that we have the right conversations with them? Like if we don't know what their true motivation is, their true timelines, why those timelines are actually important, we don't have any of that. We have nothing to talk about when we start getting that resistance about, oh, I'm just not ready yet, or, you know, we're not going to be looking this week. And it's like, well, what are we trying to achieve? If we don't know what their true outcome or goal is and why it's important, then it's really hard for us to communicate with them in a way that helps them move forward in a process. So I think, Jen, I'll throw it to you in terms of like the importance of that consultation and what we're really covering in that meeting.
Yeah, so I would arguably say, at least I believe this to be true. I think the consultation is the most important part of your entire buyer relationship, without fail. Like if you are skipping that step, you are leaving a whole level of service, a whole level of clarity, and a whole level of communication untouched.
Yeah.
And it's going to make challenges down the road for you when you could be having a smooth process and your client could be having a better experience. So your consult is really about one of 3 things. Well, it's about 3 things, but depending on the lead source, if it's a referral, your consult is about building rapport and engaging with the client first and foremost, because they are already more likely to hire you and work with you if it's a referral, right? Just trust is already there at a different level. If it's an online lead or a door knocker, an open house, you're selling yourself a little bit as well. You want them to like you. You want them to trust you. You have to build that in, and you have to build it in quickly. So the first portion of your consult should always be rapport building for about 10 to 15 minutes, right? Get to know them a little better. If you're not great with small talk, you can leverage FORD, which is family, occupation, recreation, dreams, which are kind of a structure of conversation topics you can have with people. Most of the time in a buyer consult, you're not going to get to dreams. Okay. They don't like you enough to tell you what their dreams are. It's real. That's like a
Yeah.
deep
Totally.
conversation,
And
right?
I've pivoted that as well in recent years, where even if it's like excitement about upcoming trips or things in their lives that they're looking forward to, it's not quite, some people aren't opening up to true aspirations, but we want to get to that deeper personal side of things beyond just transactional and getting to know you stuff, right?
Yeah, a trick that I got taught years ago that I still lean into even when I'm talking to agents now on a regular basis is finding the thing I have in common with them as quickly as possible, right? Is it having kids? That's an easy one most of the time for those of us that have kids. Is it the type of work we're in? Are we self-employed? Can we talk about that a little bit? If they tell me something about a hobby that they have or something they're interested in, do I have any knowledge about that I can at least go back and forth a little bit? Because when I'm talking to them about something that they like, that's important to them, they automatically are going to like me and trust me a little bit more and feel that we have more in common. The other part to this is learning how to mirror and match, right? I talk relatively fast most of the time.
Especially when trying to get it all on teaching.
Yeah, I can't control it. It happens. It is what it is. I have to work at this really hard. If I'm talking to somebody who talks slow, I've got to slow it right down, right? I want to talk at their level until they get to know me more. And then I don't care anymore. But in that moment, I am mirror and matching. I'm also watching their body language and I'm mirror and matching that without being obvious. Like if they pick up a pen, don't pick up a pen, right? Like they won't know what you're doing, but it'll be
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. However, if they're leaning back in their chair, lean back in your chair. If you notice that they shift their body angle, gradually shift your body angle so that you're matching them. And the reason we do that psychologically is because people naturally like people that remind them of themselves, right? And it's like that. There's that concept of, you meet somebody and you're like, I feel like I've known you my whole life, and you can't make sense of it. And people are like, oh, it's past life, this, that, and the other. It's because they just talk at the same pace you do and they function, move their body the same way you do. And your brain goes, hey, I know this. I know this person. I know this behavior. So it feels like we've known them for a lot longer. Same concept when you're sitting with your client. And then also, and I think this is important, and you might have been able to pick this up from the phone call consultation or quick, whatever way you were able to book this appointment, is their profile, their DISC profile, right? So for those of you that know DISC, there's roughly 4 different personality types, give or take across the board. You've got your D, which are your drivers. They're just like, get to the point, give me the numbers. I don't want to sit here for an hour. This is going to be a 20-minute meeting at most. They want everything immediately. They're hard go-getters, and they don't have a lot of fluff. They don't have a lot of soft edges sometimes. And it's not intentional. It doesn't mean they don't like you. That's just who they are. You have to understand that that's who you're talking to. And you need to make sure you're approaching that conversation in a way that suits them, that they will feel heard and validated. The next group is your high I. That's the majority of realtors, honestly, and a lot of the population. D and C, which I'll get to at the end, are the smallest portions. I and S are the largest, right? I is that person who's the life of the party. Like they walk into a room, they are in that room. They are loud, they are visible, they love being that person. And there's different scales of it, but they're very outgoing. They're the ones that will chat your ear up. You'll be there for like an hour and a half with them because they will tell you 30 stories along the way. But all they need is for you to like them in order to hire you. They want to feel like their biggest fear is actually being rejected. So when you're working with a high I, it's all about loving on them, making them feel loved, making them feel heard, being engaged, sharing about yourself, being more vulnerable with them. They relate to that at a really, really high level. This is your teacher, your nurse, your firefighter, the person that takes care of everybody else. They like security, they like structure, they like systems, and they're going to constantly ask you why. Why does this work like that? Why does that work like that? And they will not make a decision until they understand why. So for them, it's important to make them feel safe and to educate them. And then your high C's are your detailed numbers people. They're the ones asking you for the spreadsheets and the analytics and all the data. You can find them pretty easily. They stand out. They're also the one that will email you and tell you there's a spelling mistake on page 10 of your listing presentation or your buyer guide.
Yep.
Yeah, every time. And they don't mean it in a judgmental way. They're being helpful.
Yeah, I think we just leave the spelling mistakes in there now to help identify them.
Yeah, put on a couple of pages here and there and just kind of gauge. The high I and the high D, they will never read anything you give them. Don't be offended by it. They're just not going to do it. The S and the C will. The S will ask you a bunch of questions about it. The C will give you your corrections. So you want to understand who you're talking to, because as you can imagine here, my conversation with a person that needs safety and security is going to be very different than my conversation with the high D that just wants the information and wants to get moving and wants to buy a house yesterday, right? And if you're showing up as yourself, which is a high I or a high S or high D, and you're talking to someone who's opposite, and you do a presentation the same every single time you meet somebody, you're going to miss connections that you could have otherwise converted. Right? So it's important to do that. There's a whole training on it. We can dig into that more, but spend some time learning human behavior and habits, because it will help you a lot with conversion and how you show up. So that's your first 15 minutes. You're just chatting, get to know them. If you meet them in a coffee shop or something, please buy the coffee. Okay, please buy the tea. They'll say no, they always do, but insist on it. You're the professional, you're meeting with them, you're providing a service. Act that way, right? Show up that way, be on time, right? We're not rolling in 10 minutes late and apologizing for bad traffic that we should have accounted for. We're on time, right? The second part of the consultation is really getting to know them a little bit more. Tell me about yourselves. Why are we here today? What's the goal of this? We asked this question at the beginning of the class. What's the goal of this conversation, right? How can I help you? Come from contribution. Then you're going to also get into what they're looking for. So you're going to ask them the 4 questions. And I always leaned into the 4 W's: what, where, when, and why. Makes the conversation easy. It's also easy to remember. What is, what's the vision? Tell me about it. And then guys, shut up. Let them talk. You don't have opinions about their vision. It's their vision. It's their future. It's their family, right? Just listen, take notes. And actually take notes. People feel more heard psychologically when they see you writing down notes. That's also a thing. Have your laptop, have your book, have your remarkable, whatever that thing is called, have your tablet, have a notebook. Doesn't matter how you do it, but make notes, pay attention. After the what, which is also kind of the process of getting started, we're going to ask when. When do you want to have this by? What I learned early on too was I don't want to ask them, when do you want to buy the house? I want to ask them, when do you want to be living in the house? And that gives me an opportunity to then work the timeline backwards. Well, we'd love to be in the house. We want the kids in this school pocket, so we need to be there by July because of registration. Okay, perfect. So you want to be in the house by July. We're probably going to have about a 60-day closing. So that's June. That's the beginning of May. It might take us about 20 to 30 days to find the perfect house if we really go hard at it, which means we got to go shopping like last week. Now I've created a bit of urgency, right? Because in their mind, July's a long way away, because they don't know the process yet. So if you ask them when they want to be in the house and you work backwards, you can create a timeline that starts sooner, which gets them into momentum a little bit faster. And it's also true. Like, we're not manipulating it. It's true. And so sometimes they might say, well, probably in the fall. Okay, great. If they don't give you a specific answer, tell me what's important about the fall. Well, I want to spend the summer in our home. We want one last summer with the amazing pool we have in our backyard. Awesome. Okay, so when do you usually close up the pool? October. Okay, great. Are we selling your house as well? Yes, fantastic. So we want to sell it while the pool is open, right? Yeah. Okay, awesome. So let's work that timeline. Now we're getting into getting them visioning that movement and that future process, right? Okay, so that's the second question. That's the when. Now it's the where. This is the fun part. Where do you see yourself going? Tell me what that house looks like, and have them describe the house to you. And if there's multiple people there, have all of them describe their dream house. And it sounds like this: Nas, I love this plan. I think it makes perfect sense. So tell me, if we were to find you the perfect home that would help you start this process and get you to put an offer in on it, what does that house look like? Describe it to me. And they're going to laugh because it's a little weird at first, right? And be like, well, what do you mean? I honestly am like, what do the floors look like? What does the kitchen look like? Is there a garage? Is there a pool? How much land do you have? Tell me what you want.
How do you
dream
use it
home.
from the family?
How do you use it? And then have them answer the question, because now they start to visualize the home they want, and we're moving them from their current home to the one they're dreaming about. And it's very organically happening. Do that with everybody at the consult, right? What's funny, and this is a weird thing, but I've noticed this over the years, if it's a husband and wife, or if it's partners, ask the less dominant partner first. So the one who's quieter or more reserved or not talking as much, ask them to answer it first. because the dominant, they've got an answer locked and loaded. They're driving this thing. They already know what they want, right? But sometimes the second person says something and you see them go, wait, what? I didn't know we wanted a double car garage. I didn't know we wanted a workshop. And then it brings up objections that could happen later in the shopping process that we get to handle now. But it also gives them a voice, because often once the dominant person goes first, they just tend to agree. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that with dynamics. So it's important to pay attention. Who's leading the conversation? Who are you on the phone with more? Who's the dominant driver of the relationship, right?
And just to jump in there, I think what you'll find is, as we talk about getting momentum going with buyers and having buyers that are out looking and just not making decisions yet, when everything that you've talked about from your consultation seems to check off, like you found the right house for them and they're still saying, we just don't know. Well, we haven't uncovered something, right? And sometimes it is because there is a quieter partner there that hasn't fully articulated what it is that they want out of it or what they're looking for in the house. Yep. And they're not necessarily bold enough to state the reason why. Maybe it might just be a clarity thing, but you just get the, I don't know if it's the right one, but they don't give you quite the answer. You need to dig deeper on those because we haven't figured out what the real issue is yet, whether it be because it doesn't quite fit a criteria, or maybe going back to Naz's point earlier, that it's an uncertainty thing. Like there's a bigger issue behind the scenes of like, well, we're just still, maybe it's an S, we're just nervous about what the market might do. Right. So whenever we're starting to get pushback on something that we can't quite make sense of, it's because there's something that we haven't uncovered yet. And that's why these consultations are so important, especially when we come back to figuring out that personality profile, because their targets and their goals usually get expressed differently. Like when you look at the drivers, when they're talking about why now might be the time for them to buy, they see opportunity in the market. Right. And then when you see the S's, they might be like, well, I'm just worried we buy the wrong house, or now isn't the right time. It's more of a safety security thing with them. So you got to be able to talk to both, because if you can't solve the challenges for both of them, they're not going to be able to make the decision together.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why that personality trait's so important, because it could be the same issue, just presented differently, but you got to be able to talk to both.
Yeah, and that's actually why the last W, the why, is so important. And it's the part that you need to get the most clarity on. And it's why are they moving? What's their motivator? What's their purpose for this move? If we don't understand why they want to move, we can't handle objections effectively. Because we might be sitting like, let's say it was Dylan and I buying a house, and we have a realtor that we're working with, and I'm hesitant and I'm saying, you know what, I'm just not sure if it's the right time or that, but they know that my motivation is to get a house where we can fit a pool in the backyard and have more space for the kids to run around and so on and so forth. That realtor could then say to me, well, Jen, when we first met, you mentioned to me that these things were important to you. And I know this house offers all of those features for you. So beyond the market being a little unstable, is there any reason that this house wouldn't be a great fit for your family for the next 15 or 20 years while your kids grow up? Well, no. Okay. Now I've isolated the objection. You've already agreed it's the right fit for the next 15 to 20 years. We've got that solved. Now let me handle talking about the market. Here's what we see in the market. And then historically, this is what happens in real estate. And that's when we lean on statistics to comfort someone who's a high S to go, look at the history, look at the stats. This is where your safety is in repetition, in past patterns. And guys, to be honest, for every demographic, every profile, probably except high I, that is going to solve any questions about the market or anything. It's just showing historical patterns. Yes, you know what? The last few years have been strange and it's been challenging and the market has been up and down, but let's look historically. Look what happened in the 90s, right? There was a way worse crash than we're experiencing right now. Sellers were upside down on their mortgages. Interest rates are at 17%. We were doing vendor takebacks all over the place. And by 2005-06, the market had rebounded almost completely. It was a 5-year gap. You're telling me you're going to be in this home for the next 20 years. Are you comfortable being in this home while this market resets and we get back to a better position? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, great. So do we think this is that home for you? Right? So I've handled the objection and I've come back to the home they've already agreed is the right home, which should then move them back into momentum on moving forward with an offer. So you have to isolate the objection to be able to deal with it directly, which means you need to separate it, right? Does that make sense? So when you remove it, you do it by qualifying another point. I know you love X, 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 and X, and this is what you told me when at the beginning why you were moving. Does this still fit everything, or has something changed? No, nothing's changed. That's all great. Great. Tell me what the challenge is. I'm worried about the market. Awesome. Let's talk about that. And then I spend time with them on that until they feel comfortable. Because S's, they need a little more time sometimes. They're also not going to sign anything day off, so don't ask them. They just won't. And then you'll actually annoy them if you try to pressure them, and then they won't like you. And then you're in a troubled position, right? D's and I's will sign on the spot if you get them in the right mood. S's and C's will not. They need to think. They need to process and digest, and then they will. Right? So when you're doing your consult, do you guys see how it's important to know all of this information in order to provide the best service to them? So if you're skipping this part, you're not serving them at a high level, which also means that they're not that connected to you. So they're not as tied to you, which can have them go and talk to other realtors. It could have them disengage from the process. You haven't helped them solidify a why. You haven't had them solidify a timeline. And oftentimes, going back to online leads, they are early in the process. So we don't know what that timeline looks like. We need to ask these questions. We need to understand what their needs are. And then we need to go and get into motion with them. So after you have the consult, you take all the notes, you have all the information. The next step is to get them into forward movement, right? So a lot of agents, what they do here is they go, okay, I'm going to set you up on Realm. I'm going to send you some listings. Let me know when you see something you like and we'll go see it. That is pretty much the complete wrong thing to do. Like across the board, just you have them here and now we're just plummeting, right? Because they're busy. They have lives. Like Kelly, we were talking about this earlier, right? You have intentions to do things, but if it's not on your priority list or life happens, that may get pushed out 2 months purely because somebody wasn't actively keeping it top of mind. That's our job. Our job is to go find the right houses. Our job is to make sure we're communicating with them, that we're checking the searches, that we're pushing them to go see houses. And then I'm going to let you talk on the orientation tour, because one of the best, and actually the email too, that this is what I heard you say.
Yep.
I think the next 2 steps after your consultation should be a follow-up email with all those notes you took, followed by an orientation tour. And I'll let Dylan tell you what that looks like.
Yeah. So I do just want to summarize your consult thing real quick, so everybody real clear on that. Because yeah, and there was so much good stuff in there. So just the notes that I took is like, obviously getting into rapport really quickly is very important. We need to be locked in and we need to be able to have those kind of, I don't know where I'm, yeah. Anyways, I'll slide that over there. I don't know. Anyways, so rapport for sure. Figuring out their personality profile so we know how to talk to them and what they're looking for, very key. Getting clear on the outcome that they're looking for. What is it that they want? Jen talked a lot about the 4 W's, but specifically like what is the outcome? What does a win look like? And so that you know that you can keep pointing towards what that win is. If we don't know the timeline in that, super challenging, and the importance of the timeline. And I'll touch into that in a second. Of course, trying to figure out why is now the time? Why are we having this conversation now? Because we want to be able to pull back to that if we do stall out, right? Today is all about how do we keep things moving forward. If we're stalling, we need to be able to go back to why now was when we first met. And the 2 ways that I talk about that a lot is future pleasure and future pain. Future pleasure is like, what is the great outcome that we're excited about? Hey, we're excited to be in for summertime because we want to be in before the kids get to school. We want to start hosting backyard parties, all that kind of stuff. Future pain, we can't leave out on this. What happens if you don't buy a house by the time you just told me? What does that look like? And if we don't know what that pain is, our goal is really to uncover that. If there is no pain, that's already a mark where you're like, hey, they could drag on this because there's no urgency on their part about why they're going to do this. Like I could stay in my house the next 5 years. I don't need to move. Okay, not the most motivated buyer or seller that we're looking at, right? So we really got to get clarity on that, because there is pain there most of the time, which is why they're meeting with you. They're not going to meet with you if they don't want to move, and there's a reason why they want to move. Either they're outgrowing the space, they're taking a look at the potential for the move up, maybe there's opportunity, maybe it's something to do with family, maybe it's something to do with a job, but there is a pain point there, or there's just really strong pleasure point of like, we're excited to do this. So, and sometimes that pain is ego. Like say they could stay, but hey, I'm doing really well at my job. I want the bigger house. That's okay too, right? But figuring out what that is, and that usually plays more into like your personality profiles, particularly with the D's. Somebody may have more ego of like, I want the nice house, or I want to be in the nice school area, or whatever it is. But don't sleep on these, because you will miss out on some of that opportunity.
Yeah, and just, you don't need to hold it.
I like holding it.
It's just one final thing about that are selling purely because they're in pain financially or otherwise. In those scenarios, obviously, we handle that conversation with care, right? They are in a position they don't want to be in. This process is not fun for them. It is stressful, it is painful, and they're probably struggling even just with their personal relationships and everything else because of the amount of stress. Your job in that situation becomes being the person that solves as many of the pain points as you can for them to make the process as stress-free as possible within our ability,
Yep.
right? That's how we make it a win for them. And they're not going to tell us that because they don't know they need that. They're just like, I'm drowning and I've got to sell my house and I can't pay my mortgage and I just lost my job or we're going through a divorce or whatever is happening. And they need us more than the people that are in the fun position, right? So please remember that this market, we are coming across more of that than we normally see because we're in challenging economic times. And it is important to show up the right way for that. And that is just putting on the caring hat. How do I help you through this?
Yeah.
You got to sell your house. We're here having this conversation. Motivation is clear. I don't need to sell you on that, but I need to help you. And if you can show up for them in that structure, you will get that business as well because they need someone who's not judging them and is helping them. Right. So that I don't usually hit that point, but in our current market, I think it's important to differentiate between the two.
And I think, we're going to get the Nunos, of course, with the people saying I need to sell first before I buy, and just looking into those moments where there will be hard truths that need to be given about pricing, especially when we're talking about selling. And one of the things I always like to bring up at the consultation is like permission to have an open conversation at any time. Like if there's anything that I'm not doing right that you want to talk about, please let me know. If there's anything that I feel like I need to tell you to make sure you're getting the highest level server, is it okay if I tell you that as well? And then I tie that into, if I'm ever telling you something that makes you feel a little uncomfortable or it's not the positive news that you want to hear, I want you to know that it's because it's the truth. As a salesperson, you can imagine I never want to be the one that gives you bad news. So if I'm telling you something that you don't want to hear, I want you to know that I'm sharing that with you because it's the truth. And I think it's information that you need to know to be able to make the right decision for your family. I just leave that there, and then I can always go back to that. And it's that permission for both of us to have hard conversations going through. Because one of the things I think that us as agents is one of our challenges, we know there's hard conversations to be had, but we don't feel comfortable having them. And then things drag on, and we keep working with a client that's not going to do anything because we haven't had the hard conversation.
Yeah,
So,
or we're hoping it goes away.
we're hoping
right?
it goes away,
Yeah,
right?
like
The market will rebound and we're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a tricky one, and it is just reading the people. And I had a thought on that, but I've lost it. So
Yeah, I'm gonna keep moving on. So after we do the consult, the first step that we always follow up with is an email that's titled, "This is what I heard." It thanks them very much for taking the time to meet with me. And then I roll into, "This is what I heard from our meeting." And I go through all my notes. I detail what it is that they're looking for. I detail the timeline. I detail the when and the why. I detail what they want from me, what they expect, like our mutual relationship to look like. And in that, I also anchor that future pain of like the why this is important. If they gave me a timeline and I asked, of course, here's the great outcome that we're looking for, I have that. If we don't achieve this by whatever time, what does that look like? I include that there, right? Because I'm trying to anchor that timeline so that we keep moving forward at a pace that makes sense to achieve that, right? And so again, the whole purpose of this is one, that it's documented, it shows that you listened, it's great follow-up, all that stuff is there. And again, I'm using some of that information in there to help anchor of like, this is why we're doing this. And I think it's easy sometimes for them to also forget about why they have those goals because there's other fears and stuff that get in the way. So it's like reminding them, hey, this is something that you guys shared was important to you. I'm working to help make sure that we achieve it. And I also always have a line in there saying, if there's anything that I missed or I forgot to mention, please let me know. Right. So it's another chance for them to feel heard and say like, yeah, Dylan, you nailed all this. By the way, we also really just want to make sure, we do want an in-law suite. Like we are going to have family moving in or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Or they might even clarify, like we also, if we don't get in by summer, it's not the worst thing. And then I go, crap, I've got an unmotivated buyer. But again, it gives them the chance to share that. Also at that meeting, you want to set up what we call the consultation tour. That is the next step. And going through the consult, going through working with any client, you want to be able to show them a roadmap of what comes next. And at every meeting, every phone call, every step, you're telling them the next time you're going to talk or the next thing that you guys are doing, so that when it happens, this is exactly what was expected,
Yeah.
right? This is what we know was to happen. And there is forward momentum because we're talking about it every step of the way. So at that consultation, we always talk about the orientation tour. And the reason we do the orientation tour is I want to get them out looking at houses as quickly as possible, get them excited, but also start educating them. And I always tell them when I'm doing this orientation tour, I'm like, guys, you're not allowed to buy anything today. Today is just a chance to go see some houses, learn what it is that we like, floor plans, probably going to find some things that we didn't know we really wanted, and some things that are hard no's that we didn't know were hard no's.
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose of this orientation tour, right? But for our end, what it's doing is it's starting that next step, getting comfortable, like, because particularly we're talking about buyers today, getting out, going to look at homes, right? And so my strategy around that, of course, I'm hoping that I've got a narrow geographical location. Sometimes that's not always the way. Sometimes you've got people saying, I could go here, or I could go there. But for the most part, I find our guys are focused in one spot for the majority of the time. In there, I'll bookend a few. I'll show some low-ender homes, right? Because they'll have a budget in mind, being like, well, I'd kind of want like a $700,000 home. I show them some of those of what 700 looks like, even if it doesn't line up with what they're saying, because now I'm showing them like, you want the $900,000 house at the $700,000 budget. So I'll show them those two, and I'll show them some of the dream homes that they've described that are more expensive, right? So I kind of do the top end, the bottom end, and then some sweet stuff right there in the middle. And I try to show enough that I can get a good sense of like, this is the features that they're looking for. Here's the non-negotiables. Layout's important. Sometimes bedrooms, like bedroom count is important. It can go either way, or maybe there's one in the basement. Depends.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to show them enough of that variety. And I also kind of overload them. Like I'm looking at about 8 showings. When I'm looking with active buyers, I'm very rarely showing them that many at once because it gets too confusing. But at the time of when I'm going through that, we're just taking notes on like what it is that they like, what it is that they don't like, and getting real clear on pricing. And then as well, my next step on the follow-up, as we watch some of those listings, I can show them like, hey, remember that one that you really liked that you thought was overpriced? Well, they got what they wanted for it. Or, this market's crazy, sometimes it's not. But the point is like, okay, hey, we just learned that the ones that are listed at 900,000 for that, they're really selling 820 or 830, right? The whole point is educational in terms of what the market is doing and what they like.
Yeah, and I think what it helps to do too, which you kind of alluded to, is it aligns their budget and their expectations. So that like a lot of agents, what we see is they get a buyer lead and they just start showing them houses. And they're showing them stuff that there's people like they're not going to buy. They can't afford it. It's not in the pocket they want. It doesn't have. And when you do the consult and then you do this is what I heard you say, everything is confirmed in those first 2 steps. So now the orientation is to, okay, now let me educate you and just get clear that what you think you want is actually what you want, because a lot of the time it's not. And then it allows them at the end of that orientation, like I know I would always do 6 to 8 houses as well. And then we'd sit outside the last one, or we'd go get a coffee and we'd break it down.
Yep.
This one, you wanted this, and we would talk about it. We're like, okay, so just to get clear, your budget's here and your expectation is here, or your budget's here, but your expectation is here, or, hey, we got wiggle room. Your budget's up here and your expectation's down here. Like we can get extra features. What are those things you would love? That rarely happens. It's usually the other 2, but it at least gives them clarity. And now when you guys start to go shop, like seeing actual houses that they might buy, you're only showing them 1 or 2 when you're going out, like each time, because you're so hyper clear on what it is they're looking for, that now I can say, and this happens, they'll send you listings. I didn't get this one. What do you think? You're like, well, it's missing a bedroom, or it's backing on a train tracks, or it's not in the school pocket you wanted, or it's 100,000 above our budget. Like, did you just get an extra $100,000 that I need to know about, right? Politely.
And that's it. You reaffirm, like, has something changed?
Yeah.
right? If we're going to take a look at this, let's do it because something's changed. So something changed that I'm not aware of, whether
Yeah.
that be through budget or different
Exactly.
needs.
Yeah, and if it hasn't, then we get to say, because we've already been clear on, we're going to be truthful. Sometimes you're not going to like what we say. Hey, you know what, Kelly, this one doesn't make sense for us to go see. It's 100,000 outside your budget. I've called the agent. They're not open to taking lowball offers. I think we got to focus on the houses that are the right fit for you. But here's two other great ones I saw today. What do you think of these? And you just always move from a negative back to a positive, right? Assuming you can. If there's no great ones, then we say, let's just keep looking. I got some feelers out. I reached out to some agents in my brokerage, whatever that looks like, because we're always creating and managing the momentum. That is our job. It's not the buyer's job. It is our job, right? So then the next step of this becomes using the tools we have. We finished the consultation. They're ready to go shopping. We've signed all of our contracts. We're now going to start sending them listings on Realm. So there are some kind of ways you can leverage those systems to just get better engagement from your clients. And the number one thing, guys, is do the work, right? Don't just send it to your clients and wait for them to tell you they like something. Get on your system every single day. Look at the listings that are available. Is there something that's a big fit for them? If there is, proactively go, hey, Kelly just saw this listing. Not sure if you saw it yet or not. It's in your email from this morning, or it's in your email from whatever it got sent. Take a look. It matches what you're telling me you want to go see. Are you free tonight? Are you free tomorrow? Depending on what your schedule allows, let's go see it. Be excited for them, right? Because excitement is contagious. Energy is contagious. If you're just like, meh, they'll let me know when they want to see something, they will, and it might be 2 months from now, right? So it is our job to create that momentum.
And it's easy to fall into the trap. If you've got very active buyers that love looking on House Sigma, love looking on Realtor.ca, or always sending you listings, it's easy to become a passenger when you should be the driver. So just be mindful of that. If they're the ones that are always sending you listings, we need to adjust that. Make sure that you're getting to those listings first, right? Because if you know what they're looking for, you should be sending them those listings as well, right? And I think the next thing to do is if there is stuff out there that they haven't sent you that you've seen, but that matches their criteria, you absolutely need to be sending it to them. Like, for example, I've got some guys that just bought last month, huge House Sigma people, constantly sending me listings, constantly browsing. I had a hard time getting them on Realm because they're like, look, we're so invested over here. We're constantly looking for houses. I'm like, okay, no problem. But something came up that they didn't really reach out to me about. And so I sent it to them right away. I'm like, guys, this matches everything you're talking about. It's at a different price point. I know it doesn't have some of the wow of what some of the other ones in the areas that we've looked for, but look at the price difference. This could really work out for you guys to do the work yourself because the gap is built in there. Like, yeah, Dylan, we looked at it. We weren't quite as excited, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, guys, there's an open house this weekend. Just do me a favor. I know you're going to be out anyway. Go take a look at the open house and tell me what you think. Sure enough, from the open house, as soon as they left, Dylan, we think it's going to be a fit. When can we book a showing? Absolutely. I'm there tomorrow. Let's go take a look. They bought the house 3 days later. And again, that was something that if I didn't push them with that email, they wouldn't even have gone to see it. Because even when I sent them the message saying, and we do a lot of stuff in WhatsApp, I find I get a lot faster responses through like a texting app, or you can use iMessage as well, versus email sometimes. So, tailor that for whoever it is that you're working with. If I hadn't have done that, because they pushed back even in that message, they're like, Dylan, we just don't see it. We don't think this is the one for us. The pictures don't look great, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, go see it in person. And that was the first thing they said, like, it's so much better in person than it looked in the photos. That's not usually the experience you have, but nonetheless, it was. And that's the whole point on why we have to be the drivers to do that, right? Because it's easy when you've got a driver sending you listings all the time to just be like, they know what they're doing. They're on it every day.
And
how can I do more than they're doing? They're on it every day.
To circle back to that too, if you haven't done the consult and you don't understand their needs and you don't understand their why and you don't understand their timeline, you can't do what Dylan did because you don't know, right? So again, it reminds us why that consult is the number one thing you need to do, because it allows us to control the whole rest of the process, right?
So let's talk about how we manage some of that using Realm. Let me share the screen. Is this one? So first thing to do is get them, of course, set up into Realm. I know sometimes that is harder. I openly, like the guys I'm about to show you, I did have a hard time getting them into Realm, but I can still use Realm. for them and still as a tool as I need to make sure that we're kind of documenting what we're doing and keeping track as well. So the first thing I'd recommend doing is, of course, getting them into your system. And then step two is using lists. Lists are key tools to keep track of what they're looking at, how long you've been looking, what things are selling for, what things aren't selling for, what's been relisted 5 times. And when we used to have Colab before Realm was a thing,
Forgot about.
yeah, it's basically, it looks a lot like Realm. It had the lists, it had a lot of those features as well. Same with the suggestion listings and stuff like that. I had guys that were looking for like 3 years, just on and off, like the worst kind of buyers, most lovely people, but worst kind of buyers you can work with. And then finally, they reached out again and said, Dylan, we want to go see this house. Blah, blah, blah. I said, all right, guys, I'm going to take you to see this house. But the deal is we've got to meet at Tim Hortons first around the corner from that house. And we've got to talk about what it is that you're looking for again, because they've been looking so long, we needed to have another consultation. So thankfully, what I'd been doing with those lists is I had a list for every time we went out to see houses. So I had like Friday the 12th of October showings. I had November the 3rd showings. I had January of the following year showings, all documented. And then what I did was I converted those lists into the years that the list that we went and saw them. And so I showed them, then I pulled the stats, because stats are easy to pull from Treb or from Realm on your listings or on a list. And I showed them, I'm like, okay, well, in 2017 when we were looking, this was the price. In 2018 when we were looking, this was the price. In 2019 when we were looking, this was the price. And sure enough, in the type of property that they were looking for, every year what they were looking for got more expensive. And then I remember very specifically, it was 2020, right before COVID got announced. I did that consult with them. The next day, the NBA was canceled, then schools were canceled, and then something else was canceled. Even with that, that was in March. They bought in April and they closed in June just because of that meeting, right? So sometimes you have to be able to show them. When we're talking about momentum and moving buyers off of, the fence and to make an actual decision, you have to be able to show them that. And lists are one of the best ways. So obviously CMAs for properties that they're interested in or that they're going to be selling, very important to do. But also, I would say showing dates. If you've taken them out, your first list should be orientation tour. Next list should be any showing days that you take them out afterwards. You should have another list for every listing they've ever sent you, so that you can go back and be like, hey, remember this one that you sent? This is what it sold for. This is what it sold for. Like, we're starting to see a pattern, and then you can show them that information. So again, towns over 900, the different CMAs at the property. So again, looking, okay, if this is the area that we want to be in, I view them all. I pull the stats count. Let's go actions. Gonna search. And then same thing here. I can go actions, stats and counts. All right, so now I've got the average sale price, the median sale price, how quickly they were selling, what buyers were paying on average. And then for the next house that they were interested in, same thing. I can start pulling that data and see, hey, are we moving further away from what we want or closer to what we want? Typically, and as this goes back to the economy in that, what does it look like in terms of the market and pricing, right? Are we trending upwards or downwards? What does that look like? Are we moving further away from the type of home that we want? Is it getting more competitive, less competitive? I've got some other cool tools that I use to show the gap, say if it's a move-up buyer between, the townhomes and the detached. These guys currently, one of the big things I showed them was like the gap between the detached and the townhomes. It's the closest it's ever been in the last 6 years. And that was one of the things that helped push them over the edge to be like, okay, now is the right time. Yes, there's other stuff going on. We feel confident in our jobs. We're not worried about like not being able to afford the house, but look at what's just happened. You can buy in a great market and it's going to cost you $500,000 to move up, or you could do it now when it's only $163,000. Right? And so showing them the data, I love using data to do the heavy lifting because I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but unless I show them sometimes the reason why, it's really hard. So using lists to be able to pull that data to show them the differences, one, how many homes you've looked at, what's changed since you started looking at those homes, being able to easily reference the listings that they send you. Because, for example, I use WhatsApp with the majority of my clients these days. They love firing off a House Sigma link just in that chat. And I can't scroll through that every time to do it. So I see the address, pop it into Realm, add it to my list. And that way I know this is another one that they sent. And if it does drag on, because again, this whole class is about buyers getting into momentum, because a lot of them aren't making decisions. Sales volume shows that.
Yep.
Everett agents' pipelines
A
show
lot of
that.
active buyers.
Yeah, not buying houses. Yeah. So again, being able to talk to that stuff at a high level is what helps them. But also, it's the steps of always knowing what comes next. So consultation, orientation. This is what I heard. Orientation tour, follow up. What's next? And then I would say, when it comes to strategy around showing homes, this is just kind of like an NLP thing. It's more so like programming them. Show them the best homes first, and then let it get worse from there. Like if they've inquired about 3 or 4 homes that you want to go see, book the best ones first. And what we're trying to show them is like, it doesn't get better. The best home is the best home. That's what we want to find. We don't want to get into a place where we're like constantly just looking to look, because we're wondering about the next opportunity that might come and ignoring the opportunity that's out there right now. Right? Like there are amazing opportunities out there now. We need to make sure that we're highlighting that and not getting into a headspace of like better stuff will come.
And the reason that data, like I'm not a data person, I appreciate it. I love it. I hate getting it. It just drives me crazy. It is by far the best tool for keeping people engaged. And most people are visual, right? So if I'm talking at Dylan and I'm telling him all my thoughts, and I could be the most convincing speaker in the world, but I'm not visually showing him something that validates what I'm saying, he's just going to hear what I say and he's going to go home and he's going to think what he thinks anyway. But if I can validate it with some visual additions or tools, now all of a sudden he can't ignore it. It's completely shifted the end result of the conversation. So the stats and stuff, as much as, yeah, it's tedious and we've got to learn how to plug them in and we've got to learn how to find them, do it. Invest in that in your business, because it is the piece that moves people forward. The market is the market. And this isn't a seller class, but on the seller side too, it's the same argument. If you have a seller that's not willing to drop their price and you're stuck, use the data, right? The data will have the conversation that we can't have. And then it's not us saying it, it's the market saying it. So it also takes the blame off of us, which is very powerful. So with buyers too, I think a lot of people skip this step with buyers, but we do it with sellers. Buyers need the data as well. They need the reason to justify. And right now, the best conversation you can have with anybody, even leads that you're trying to move into that consultation, is show them the math. Hey, I'm not sure if you know, Asa, I know you're looking at houses right now, trying to figure out if it's the right time or not to buy. I just wanted to share this with you. I was at a meeting at my brokerage today, and we were talking about this. Did you know right now, and we're going to be strategic based on what they're looking at, that the first-time home buyers can spend X percentage less than they would have had to in 2020 to get the same property? Did you know that move-ups right now is a $100,000 gap, when in the peak market it was a $300,000 gap? What a great time to capitalize on that opportunity and spend less money getting your dream home. Here's a few houses that I think might be a fit for you based on the combos we had. Let me know if you want to go see them, right? Getting an email like that might be enough for me to go, oh, shit, yeah, that's cool. I do want to have that conversation, right? So just using the tools we already have, using the strategies that we already have, and honestly, it's communication above everything else. If we're not sending the information, if we're not talking about the stats, if we're not having the consultation, they're just doing whatever they want and we're not in control of the process. Also, I think something to add into when you are doing showings, and Dylan touched on this at the beginning, once you've gone through the consult and gone through the orientation tour, we're not showing them 8 houses, 10 houses, 15 houses. That's not the goal. The goal is we have tunneled this thing right down to the perfect house. I'm only going to show you things that fit that criteria. And you've given me permission to do that because of all the conversations we had. I don't want to waste your time and I don't want to waste my time. So when we see a house that's a great fit, I'm going to let you know about it. If you see something, you let me know. Other than that, we're not looking just to look. That doesn't make any sense, and it's just going to confuse everybody, right?
Yeah.
And then get their permission for that to be like, have them agree. Yeah, makes sense. Great. Now, when they try to go off track, I can be like, nope, we're staying over here because this is what we said, right? And so getting them into movement and into momentum it's education. Honestly, if we want to sum it up in one word, we've educated them on the process. We've educated them on getting their mortgage, on connecting with a lawyer, on what all of that looks like if they don't have that stuff done yet, right? Then we've educated them on the market and their budget. And now we're educating them on the buying process. every single step of the way. Also, never leave a meeting or an appointment without knowing when you're going to see them next. So something I always did was I would show the houses on a Saturday, whatever day it was, and I'd be like, awesome, like let's chat later if they like something. If they didn't, it was like, okay, cool. But I would always say, when are you free next? Let's make sure we keep going out and looking. Is Tuesday work or is Thursday better?
Yeah.
And I just lock them in right then. And then I would worry about finding the houses to show them on Tuesday or Thursday or whatever that was, because that is my job.
Yeah.
They knew they were seeing me again on Tuesday or Thursday, so they're actively looking too, because now I've created a next step every time. So they're going to help me with that, because they're going to send me some stuff they want to see, and then I'm going to filter it. And I'm going to pick the best couple, and I'm going to show them those, because every time I show them something that's a great fit for them, I'm closer to them wanting to buy something. And if they understand the opportunity, because we've educated them that as well, they're going to want to buy something quickly.
I think as well too, like we're obviously big advocates for the consultation and how important it is, because look at all the stuff that you get out of it that helps you have the tough conversations down the road. If I'm having a challenge getting a buyer to that next step, but like we're in good rapport, like we're still talking and stuff like that, I will push an orientation tour in front of the consultation just to get them out to see some houses and get excited. Because when you're sitting at home and looking on your phone and scrolling, it's just another thing to scroll. It's not the same level of excitement as going to see a house. So I'm okay, like in general, of putting that orientation tour first, being like, Abso, you know what? We've been looking around online a little bit. I know we're not ready, but you know what? Why don't you and I go out this weekend and look at like 5-6 houses? Just see if there's anything that like speaks to us, see what we like, see what we don't like, you know, see what the market's doing right now, get a little update. I'll bring some coffee and let's go. And then from there, you never know what might trigger them. I'm at that point, maybe I haven't done a full sit down consultation, but I've definitely qualified them in terms of what they're looking for, because we've had conversations, obviously in the past, they just haven't taken a next step yet. I will do that. And I'm okay with it not even leading to anything. Like there's a few people we're working with in our pipeline now. They're not going to be ready to buy till maybe summer or even in the fall, but we're doing a couple orientation tours now just to solidify the relationship and again, keep them moving forward. Right. And so if you don't have a lot of buyers, or you're not meeting with clients a lot on the regular basis, what have you got to lose? Right. Like unless you're rock solid and lead genning 8 hours a day, you've got a few hours in the afternoon that, or like whether it be on a Saturday or Sunday, if you're not hosting open houses, to then go show somebody. Like if I don't have any meetings this week, I would push for just like, who can I call in my database to go show some houses to? Right. Somebody that I know that has some interest in doing something when the time is right. I lock up the relationship, and also who knows what I might get out of like some excitement of actually seeing something.
I've taken people on orientation tours and then they want to buy one of the houses.
Definitely.
And I've said at the beginning, you can't buy any of these
Yeah.
houses. It gets a little weird. Like,
Yeah.
well, we got to wait till tomorrow. Yes. You know, but it does happen for sure, especially if you had a great consult and you're locked in on it. It is easier to find those houses that are a good fit. And the other thing I think before we jump into kind of tackling Nuno's question a little bit is if they look and they have 2 locations they're interested in, let's say they want both Stouffville and Richmond Hill, for example, do the 2 orientation tours. Not on the same day.
Yeah,
Don't bounce
separate
back and forth. Separate days, separate tours. I would way rather spend one afternoon in Stouffville showing 4 or 5 houses and have my client say Stouffville's not for me, and focus on Richmond Hill than having to show in both and bounce around and spend a whole bunch of time showing houses they're never going to buy.
Yep.
They will know which neighborhood just based off of the vibes and the house style and the main street and how they feel being in that environment within those 8 houses that they go through.
Mhm.
And they'll know which one they like better, and they'll be able to rule it out. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're like, both work. Then it just becomes about budget and options. But at least you know, and you're not just running around chasing a deal that is probably not going to happen because it's not the right neighborhood to begin with. So don't hesitate. If you have someone, like I had this because I did a lot of deals downtown, people would be like, oh, like High Park or Leaside or Yonge and Eglinton or Leslieville. And I'd be like, okay, this is going to take forever. So I actually used to give them homework, and I'd be like, okay, I want you to go on Saturday and on Sunday, go to this neighborhood, spend a day, have some coffee, check out the local stores, go to some open houses, and do it with all of the neighborhoods. And by doing that, you get a feel for what it's like to be there in your weekend time, in your free time, and then let me know your top 2. That worked every single time.
Yeah.
And it usually ended up being one. They're like, we just loved this location. We loved Leslieville. Great, let's focus on that. Because I didn't want to be driving. It would have taken me forever.
Yeah.
That and it they want to do it anyway. It also they get excited about it. And then I'd also say, let me know which open houses you saw.
Yep.
Right. And I'll call the agent.
I'll
and give you
even I'll
feedback.
suggest open houses. Like, here's a
Yeah.
list of open houses that are happening on Saturday that you can go see.
Yeah.
Let me know which ones you go to. Right. And I think what's important about that part is, like, yes, we're pushing being very engaged because that's the way you're going to get there. But at some point, you're going to need some leverage too, because you can't just drive around the city or these different areas all the time.
Yeah.
Give them that homework. Like, my guys, I was very comfortable with sending them to open houses because we had been searching for a while. Like, how do we keep this thing going without me driving everywhere all the time? It's like, go see open houses. And if it was something that they liked, then we go.
And also,
And
like,
they trusted you and you built rapport already.
Yeah.
So you can do that. You're not worried about sending them in another agent poaching them, which, by the way, most agents don't run good open houses anyway. Company accepted. So you're probably not even going to try to actually scoop your client unless
Yeah.
it's like somebody aggressive. So train your client a little bit and make sure they have some business cards that they can give to the agent.
What were you going to say there?
yeah, that's what I was gonna
Oh,
say.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you have the relationship before it because
Yeah, you have the relationship first.
And again, if we're preaching the right steps, you really should have a BRA signed.
yes,
You know, have
That's-
that BRA signed.
Yeah, by the time you finish the orientation, you should have a BRA
You should,
signed.
yeah.
Sometimes you'll get it done later that day, but because sometimes people want to kind of
Yep.
test drive it first, that's fine.
Yep.
But just do it as soon as you can.
Plant the seed at the consultation, right? Because we talk about, hey, this is the document that identifies that we're working together, what kind of services I provide to you, what that means back coming this way. Why don't we go check out that orientation tour? You'll get a sense of like how I walk you through homes, make sure that we really are a good fit. And after that, that's when we'll sign the BRA.
yeah,
It also takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
Because you're not being like, you got to sign this right now, and I'm going to get value and kind of feel it out. And then by the time you're done spending a day seeing 8 houses with them, you're going to know whether you want
Yeah.
to work with them, and they're going to know whether they want to work
And-
with you. Right?
yeah,
And everybody's different. Like I said, if you're a high volume team where you've got hundreds or thousands of leads that you're working, you can be a little pickier and be like, I don't show houses without a BRA,
yeah,
right? When you don't have 10 active buyers that you're looking with, you can invest in the relationship, show some houses, and then get the BRA signed. You know, time and time again, I remember even back to Glenn's training, he's like, I don't like the idea of meeting somebody for the first time and them telling me to sign. I have to sign a legal document to like keep
Yeah.
working with them. Like, it doesn't feel good for me either. So why am I going to do it to my clients? Right. So just think about how you're interacting with the clients and what your business model is. And I'm sure there will come a time, if you really want to have that type of business, that you will adjust your processes to a thing that makes sense for you, right? Because you can be a little pickier. But in the
And
context-
trust has changed it a little bit, obviously. Like that was all pre-trusted.
Yep.
There are more strict requirements now. But at the end of the day, you're
Yep.
still test driving a little bit, right?
Yep,
You can do
that's
a
okay.
consult without a BRA. You can have a conversation without a BRA.
Yep.
You can send them listings and data and information without a BRA. Should you show the houses? Maybe, maybe not. But at the end of the day, like get it signed that day, and you're in a tight window, or get it signed within a couple of days. But do not spend 2 months with them without getting it
Yes,
signed.
exactly.
Because the whole point of it is protect us against these issues with RICO. So we want to be conscious of that as well.
Let's talk Nuno because we're at 1:15 here.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people saying, you know, I want to buy, but I got to sell first. Perfect. And the consultation is that same starting point. Like, why are we doing this? What's the timeline? What's important? What happens if you don't move? Because yeah, I agree. Let's sell first. In this market, I feel very uncomfortable buying first before I sell. And it, as much as, you know, you'd think it'd be easier, it is challenging to get conditions on the sale of the purchaser's property in there. And even with that, I've seen like 4 of them in the last week that the buyers didn't end up firming up anyways because they didn't sell their place at the price they want. So selling first is the way to go. We're in a window right now where there's more inventory coming out. So to reassure them, it's like I would show them a graph and show like, look, this is how much more inventory we're expecting to come out historically in the next month or two. So you guys can feel confident in your buy. It's also why this time of year, especially if you're not on the market yet, you should get on the market right away because we are expecting more inventory, more competition. So Nuno, I don't know if there's anything specific in that other than acknowledging like, hey, we need to have a great consultation on why they want to sell, like what they want to get to from the move. And to be honest, there's a lot of both future pleasure and pain when it's a move up buy or a downsize.
Yeah.
Right. So any with that next step, they're doing it very clearly for a reason. Whereas maybe your first time home buyers can be a little bit more passive and be like, I don't necessarily need to do that right
Yeah.
now. And sometimes even the downsizers too.
Yeah.
So yeah, clarity on that, and then action steps. Like, let's get it listed.
Yeah.
If it's, I need to sell first to buy, well, then when are we listing?
Yeah, I think
And
that
if we're not listing now, why aren't we listing now?
I think that's the key. The key to that, Nuno, is turn it into a listing appointment, right?
Yeah.
Like if the buyer says, I need to sell first, awesome. Let's talk about selling your house. When can I come by? Just go straight into it, right? Because that's how you're going to get the buyers. And in this market, you are going to have a lot of two like double deals where you have a buy and a sell, because a lot of people are moving up. A lot of people are downsizing. There's a lot of movement happening in that space. So being open to knowing that your consult might be both a buyer and a listing consult in one is a very valid thing. I've done hundreds of those appointments. They're the best ones, honestly, because you know you've got another deal lined up once you sell the house. So I'd be like, sweet, you got to sell first. What a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? In my brain, I wouldn't say that's true, but
But
you know, that's how I would be thinking about it.
I think, again, it's important to do,
You're clicking.
I think it's important to do both sides of that. Like if the goal is to move up or the purchase, get real clear on why we're excited to purchase, what we're excited to purchase, why we're excited about it. If there's a when and a timeline, that's very important to make sure that we're locked in on that. And then clarity of CMAs on both. Like what you're describing, this is how much it's going to cost. What we're looking to sell, this is how much it's going to sell for. Right? So they're very clear on those numbers, because I think what Nuno is probably hearing a lot as well is that people are worried about selling because they're not
Yeah.
getting their perceived value of what they would have if they had sold previously. Home prices are down quite a bit over the last 5 years. I don't want to sell now because I'm selling at a loss. Well, as long as you didn't buy in the last 5 years, you're not selling at a loss. There is equity there. And the thing is, in these down markets, moving up, it's the best time to move up because the home above you is taking a bigger hit. If you're moving backwards or you're downsizing in this market, it can be a little bit more challenging. Depends on what they're buying. Are they staying in the same neighborhood? Are they moving somewhere else? Are they moving out of the main area? All that stuff matters, but you can't start to talk to it unless you know what it is they want to buy, what that's selling for, what it is they want to sell, what that's selling for. And then that way you can start to look at what's the difference. Are they coming out ahead or are they coming out behind? And the reality is there are going to be some people that you can't help or it doesn't make sense for them to do it right now.
Yeah.
Right? And it's either going to be, okay, well then we hold off, or it's a, no, I want to move. I don't care if we're taking a loss on this thing. We are moving. We are able to do it. We're going to do it anyway. And that's okay. It's if there's not the ability or if there's no real push to do it, like
Yeah.
you don't have the motivation, then it's different.
One of the
But you got to discover that so you don't waste months or half a year having conversations that aren't
chasing
going
a
anywhere.
lead that's not a real
Yeah,
lead.
that's not a real lead.
Yeah. And also, I think a lot of the time, and I know I've talked to some agents that have been in this boat where there was some, they have a client or a person in their pipeline, and they're like, oh, they're not that motivated, and they don't want to move with the market. And then we have that conversation of like, have you gone through the numbers with them? And then they sit down and they go through the math, and then their client gets super excited because it's actually a better deal for them right now. And they've reframed the conversation, and all of a sudden that agent's like, oh my God, they're going to list and they're going to buy. So we can manage the conversation more effectively because everything they're hearing from outside of us is negative, right? The media is negative, social media is negative, other realtors are being super negative and posting super negative content. And you're just like, what is going on? Like, we're all feeding into this narrative when the reality is there is great opportunity right now for the right people. The best thing you can do is sit down with someone and be like, nice, you know what? I looked at the numbers. I did all the research. Here's what I discovered. And either it's a great time for you to make this move or it is not the right time for you to make this move. That's my professional opinion. I will talk people out of buying a house, 100%, right? It seems counterintuitive. As a salesperson, it's very counterintuitive. As a consultant and a partner for them in their process, it's the right thing to do. What happens from that is it becomes a partnership and they trust you, which means they're going to refer you. So they might not buy right now, but they end up hearing somebody else that they love and want to help you're going to get that referral because you told them not to buy a house. The more you can put yourself in that position, the better the results are on a bigger picture. We all get hyper focused on one transaction, but big picture is, am I showing up as the consultant I want to be for my clients? And part of that is being open to saying, this isn't a great decision right now. If you can stay where you are, I would recommend that. maybe in another few years it'll be better. Let's watch the market. And when I see things start to shift, I will let you know. So now when I call Dylan and go, hey, great news, he's all ears. He's like, okay, great, let's talk, right? Because I have created a relationship that's well beyond a transactional relationship at that point. Yeah, and that's
What's the advice for the people that still have the condo and they want to sell the condo and buy the townhouse or detached? Because it's hard to sell their condo now and they're kind of stuck in the market.
yeah. So the question is advice for if someone has a condo and wants to sell their condo and move up to a townhouse or a detached. It's the same answer for me. You might have a different one, but for me, I would look at the numbers. When did they buy the condo? What sort of equity do they have in it? What are their condos currently selling for? Despite the condo market being bad, there are some condos selling. What's their building doing specifically? What sort of activity is there? How much inventory is there? I need to understand that. And then I need to look at what they're trying to buy and see, okay, well, what are those selling for? And even though they might sell their condo for less than what they want to, they might be able to move up for less than they would in a better market. So it just goes back to the same conversation of let's do the research first and then sit down and review all of it with them and let them make an educated decision. Because it's specific to everybody, right?
Same answer. Same answer. If I'd look at the numbers, and because the general statement of how do you move from a condo to a townhouse in this market is like really hard to do. Condos are down, right? If you bought in the last 5 years, it may actually not be possible, right?
Yeah.
It depends on the building. So
Yeah.
I would just look at what they're in for on the condo in terms of their mortgage amount. Are they up? Is there equity there? Yes or no? What could they sell for? And what they want to buy selling for?
Yeah.
And then if it's possible, it's great. And one of the ways I would show and create urgency and have excitement was I would have 2 reports. I would show what the townhomes were selling for before, what they're selling for now, how much that's decreased. Do the same with the condo. It will inevitably likely be smaller. So say the condo's down 60,000, but the townhomes are down 200,000. Perfect. You're a net 140,000 positive if you make this move. All right. And that's usually how I show those differences.
Yeah.
And then it's just about ability. If they don't have any equity and it's selling at a loss, then now's a tough time. And unless I had somebody come through my open house on the weekend and their daughter bought new construction, closed on it in 2023, 2024. They're down 100K, but the daughter and husband are doing so well at their jobs that they don't care. They have had a kid, they want to get out of the condo. They'll take the 100K loss because they just want to get out of it. And they've got money elsewhere so they can afford to do the move
Yeah.
up buy. So
Yeah.
is what it is.
People make
Right.
decisions for all different reasons. It's not up to us to make the decision. It's just up to us to deliver the information.
And same thing, if the townhome that they wanted would have cost them $400,000 more in the heat of the market when they would have got their $100,000 more on their condo, they're still at a net gain of 300,000. So it still makes sense to do when it comes back around. But all these numbers, they don't matter until a sale actually happens, right? So and it's also banking on the prices getting back to those numbers, but you know that the townhomes have a higher ceiling than what the condos have, and they appreciate at faster rates. So Jen and I moved after the market had corrected in 2023.
Yep.
And one of the big conversations that we were looking at beyond just moving for school district was, okay, we know the market's adjusting and going down. Which one of these 2 neighborhoods is going to hold its value better? And it was the neighborhood that we were moving to. So we knew that even if we buy this house and it loses its value, the one that we were staying in was going to lose its value more so than the one that we went to. So we made the move, and sure enough, both neighborhoods have come down. That neighborhood's come down way more than what our neighborhood has come down. So we've protected our money by moving to a neighborhood that had less of a drop.
Mm-hmm.
And when the market turns around, we know the neighborhood that we're in has a higher potential ceiling to get to when the markets are good than the previous neighborhood did.
Yeah.
So again, there's lots of times that you can make that move knowing that, hey, there might be a loss in the future, but it's not a realized loss. If I can ride that thing out for the next 10, 15 years, even 5 years, I know that
Yeah.
it comes back around and I've made money because of the place, the type of home that I purchased.
Yeah.
And so that applies to those condos as well. If I do the move with the condo now because the gap is closer, even though I'm losing money, am I going to be in a better off spot in 5 to 10 years, or am I going to be in a worse off spot if I make that move? Well, the ceiling on those townhomes is going to be way higher than it'll be on the condo. So there's more potential for gain to make that move now than there would be
And
otherwise.
make the money back.
And make the money back.
Right?
Exactly.
You might lose 50, 100,000. Some cases it's more, but if you're going to pick it up on the upswing, as long as your plan is to hold, you're talking about a long-term wealth realization, not an immediate wealth realization. And a lot of people don't have that conversation. So when you're looking at it strategically, taking the loss on one property might actually benefit you long term, because if I wait out this market, one, it's going to cost me more to now get into the townhouse that I could have bought for less, but two, I'm going to cap out on that condo when I would have escalated higher on that townhouse. So I actually end up costing myself more money because I keep myself in a ceiling as opposed to creating room for more growth. But you have to be able to explain that in a way that a buyer can understand, because most buyers aren't thinking the way we think in real estate. They're not looking at the market the same way. But what a great conversation to have, to say, hey, look at this opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
And then looking here, because we talked a little bit about the economy and what does all that mean? Well, for 10 years, this is what we saw the housing market do. Maybe I can go back further, but I don't know if this. Oh yeah, it only goes back to 2010 because it's Habitat. But you can pull this data manually through MarketWatch and get the annual median price, no problem.
Yeah.
So this is what we typically see with housing over the last 10 years. You go over the last 20, even more so.
Yeah.
And this is where we are now. So with today's median price being 790,000, you got to go back to about, I think it was March 2020.
Yeah, you're getting
April is
close.
750.
720.
Yeah.
There you go. June,
Yeah, so in that range,
January.
because I think that 790. But anyways, you go back to the start of 2020 before it even went up. That's what we get to buy at today,
Before COVID.
before COVID. So again, anybody that you're working with that had bought their home prior to that, they've got equity now anyways. They've paid down their mortgage. The market has gone up in relative terms from where they were. These are the guys that we're struggling with here, is that bought at higher prices, right? So it's in the last 5 years, you got to watch for that. There's potential challenges there. But everybody else, that's where it is. And so if you're talking with first-time home buyers, it's like, when do you want to get in? Like there was little opportunities along the way, but they barely showed up.
Yeah,
This is the
now
first like real opportunity to buy from 4-year-old pricing
Yeah.
and move forward. And again, this is just
Isn't that 2020 peak? That is that 2021? That ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
within March of 2020, or March of 2022, really.
Oh, 22.
April,
Yeah.
980.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, you go average price, it's a little different.
Not much. But I mean, this is the stuff that buyers should be seeing. These are the conversations. You want to create momentum, show them this opportunity. It's the best opportunity you've had since 2010, essentially, if you look at the projection upwards versus the trend downwards, right? And like,
And here's 2017, because York Region got hit harder than say Toronto did.
yeah,
Right,
York
there's-
Region got rocked in 2017. It was rough.
There's the loop. Right. And if you bought at the peak, it really took till 2021 to get back to it. January of 2021. So just finished our first year in COVID and you got back to that price. Yeah. Anyways,
We're still correcting from that crazy inflation. And that's the thing. People keep talking about the market crashing and the market being a bubble. It's a correction back to pre-COVID pricing. That's what we're seeing right now, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, because as an agent in 2019, it was a good year. 2018 was a good year. 2017
Exactly,
was not a great year. 2016 was excellent. 2015 was killer, right? We started seeing multiple offers around 2010. I went back through my email. That was the first instance I could find of a multiple offer conversation was 2010.
yeah.
We had
same.
10 years of a market in multiple offers, right? And the buyers are somehow sitting there thinking this isn't a good market to buy. It's crazy to me. Buyers should be buying right now like crazy. And we can leverage right now the conversation of interest rates, because we know they're going to go up, right? Our economics, our unemployment, our inflation, we know rates are going to go up sometime between the summer and the fall of this year. If you've got buyers right now wanting to buy, this is the window before it's going to cost them more money on their borrowed money, on their borrowed asset, right? So
Yeah.
make sure that
Actually,
you're having that
This is a great
conversation.
window in general, just because the rates have gone up the last couple of weeks. Anybody with rate holds, they're going to want to take advantage of that now. So they got like a 90-day window. And hopefully on the listing side, we'll see some of
This
that
is only
activity
the
come
banks
through.
are increasing, but not the Bank of Canada, right?
Yes,
Exactly. The Bank of Canada hasn't announced a bank-wide increase, but the banks are
But the
increasing.
5-year
Yeah,
fix,
The
so-
5-year fix specifically.
Awesome.
So, all right. So it is 1:30, guys. Any other questions before we let you go? Any ahas, any feedback from the session? Hopefully that gave you some insight on how to get your buyers moving a little bit. So yeah, anything you took away from that, or any other questions for us before we let everyone go?
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. A lot to take in,
Yeah.
and hopefully that works
Yeah.
for us.
Good consultation, roadmap, show them the next steps forward, get them excited about houses.
Yeah.
Right? And be ready to have hard conversations. Get permission to have the hard conversations.
Consult, don't sell. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thanks, everyone.